sir.
I just have to help rotate out the parking lot. There's going to be a lot of cars tonight. Or you want me to yell at you?
Yeah, will you do that, please?
Hey! Real quick! We need volunteers.
How's it going, man? I'm Nick. Brandon. Nice to meet you. Hello, I'm Nick.
Lisa.
I'll go do it.
Just come in, and when you see one person come in, run out. No more than 3, go out to the smoke center and walk up and down the aisle. Thank you. Do you know what tomorrow is?
Oh, perfect. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, guys. You know, you can.
Thank you.
You want to do?
One of you guys get us started.
What are we starting it right at 6? Okay, I'm behind. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday night 503 recovery meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. My name is Brandon, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Brandon.
Let us open this meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. Is there anyone here for their first NA meeting ever? Is there anyone here new to this meeting? Welcome. That's a hand. If so, could we have your first name so we may welcome you? You are the most important people here. Welcome. Katie.
Katie, welcome. Hilo, welcome. Welcome.
Lori.
Hey, Dakota.
There we are. All right. What's up, buddy? There is one must that applies to everyone attending, and that is no drugs or paraphernalia will be on your person. This is for the protection of the meeting place and the NA fellowship as a whole. It costs nothing to belong to the fellowship. You are a member when you say you are. All right. Turn it over to the secretary. No, just turn it over to you.
All right. Welcome to the 503 recovery meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. My name is Nick, and I'm your addict secretary.
Hey, Nick.
I would like to welcome everyone and ask that you respect the following rules. We ask that all cell phones be silenced or put on vibrate, and that disruptive behavior be kept to a minimum. The church asks that only registered service animals be present in the building. If you smoke or vape, please do so at the top of the stairs. Please put your butts in the receptacle on the pillar and be mindful of smoking around children. Please keep the noise down when outside and avoid swearing as to not disturb the neighbors. Remember, we are representing the NA Fellowship as a whole. We do provide childcare. Children need to be either in the childcare or in the meeting, not outside unsupervised. We ask that parents help make sure the childcare room is picked up after the meeting. Please do not enter the childcare area unless you have a child there. Children need to be monitored by adults while in the church and are not allowed in the kitchen area at any time. We will now silently observe the 7th tradition, which states, every NA group be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. The collection goes toward key tags, coffee, literature, and to support area and world services. We also accept donations of coffee, creamer, sugar, and cups. We will pass the can a second time between our speakers to go to the child care provider. If you have a slip to be signed, please put them in the basket and pick them up after the meeting. To show this program works with those with a year or more of continuous clean time, please raise your hand. Thank you for allowing me to be of service. I will now turn the meeting over to our first speaker.
Oh, that's gonna be
Lisa.
me. Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm an addict.
Hi, Lisa.
My clean date is 2/20/16. I'm gonna have 8 years next week. I know. So, yeah. Oh, thanks. That's just amazing to me because, like, I remember a day that I didn't even think I could get clean. I'm gonna try to get through this. Horrible anxiety going on. But I got clean, well, in 2016, but, you know, I had always had used drugs, like, from probably, like, 17, 18 years old. I've always had something. I've always dabbled. But it never, I don't know, was an issue until I was, like, later in life. So about 2010, I lost my job, life got rough, and my pill addiction got really bad. It just kind of helped me to, like, I just changed my reality, made things seem better. Okay, sorry.
You can tell them it was my fault. That's okay.
But, you know, so, you know, like, 'cause I wasn't working, my husband was sick, and life just kind of went downhill, you know? We couldn't afford to have our own place. We lost our cars. Life was just rough. So I just, you know, turned to addiction. I smoked pot. I had a lot of pills. And things, you know, and then it just kind of just spiraled from there. Like, I just couldn't get a grasp on life. You know, we moved into our own place. We got on assistance. We did, you know, what we could. But I don't know, I just never really got back on my feet, you know. And then there came one day that, like, there were no more pills. There was no money to buy pills. I had no idea that withdrawal was a thing. Like, and so that just made it 100 times worse when I started going through withdrawals, because I just started trading one thing for another. You know, we started drinking, like blackout drinking. And, you know, and then when that didn't work, found some friends and they had some meth. And that just became my new thing. I really liked meth. You know, because it's like all of a sudden I felt like I was just up and doing things and running around and having a good time. And, you know, and through all this, I had 2, you know, small children. I had our youngest at the time was 3, and I had a 10-year-old. And, you know, and so to afford the habit, we just started selling drugs, you know. And so we just had all kinds of people coming around us, all sorts of things happening, you know. And then one of the biggest things is I found some friends, and they taught me how to shoplift, you know. So that kind of just started my criminal history, you know. I like to steal stuff, a lot of stuff, you know. But it was, and I, you know, at one time I called that my job. That's what I did every day. I got up every morning, I got ready to go steal stuff, you know. That's how I afforded our lifestyle, you know. And that was fun until I went to jail on my 40th birthday, and that just really kind of started it for me, like. You know, and I couldn't, like, they put me in McJerp. I couldn't handle that. Like, I could not be an addict. I could not be on probation. I couldn't handle all the responsibility of it because I couldn't do it. Like, trying to, like, live up to everybody's expectations and still, like, you know, hide my addiction, because my family didn't know I had a drug problem. Like, I was pretty good at hiding that from everybody, you know. So trying to run around and do what I was doing and do what I wanted, but then having all these people tell me I had to go do UAs and go to treatment and do all this other kind of stuff, I couldn't hack it. So, you know, I ended up failing that pretty pretty severely, and they put me in Stark Court. So, but same thing. Like, everybody's telling me, go to treatment, get clean. Like, I had no idea how to get clean, but I was pretending like I wanted to, because I was afraid that if I got clean and my husband didn't, that I'd be alone. I was extremely codependent. I wanted to take care of him. I like to take care of everybody, but him especially, because like I couldn't figure out how to take care of him and my kids and myself and get everything done, and so I just didn't do anything. I just used drugs. It got to the point where like I spent most of 2015 in jail, in and out of jail, probation violations, all sorts of things. But one of the like the second time that I went to jail, I lost my kids. They went into DHS custody. I was really lucky though, because my family took my kids, But then that started that whole, whirlwind of my family finding out that I had a drug addiction and that I was and that I had a criminal record and that I was just a horrible person, because I tried really, really hard to hide that from people. I remember, being in and out of jail and trying to go to court and trying to like do all these UAs and try to fake my UAs. I was really horrible at that. I was not good at that at all. But it's like, I kept telling everybody I was trying to go to treatment and I was trying to get clean, but I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know that was even a thing or even how I was gonna do it. But I was pretty good at pretending like I did. And so as long as people believed I was trying, people left me alone. So I could just continue to use drugs and do what I was doing, because I didn't have my kids anymore. And I didn't know how to deal with that. And so I just used more drugs because it was easier than feeling the pain. I remember because in the beginning when we were homeless, of course, living in cars, doing whatnot. I would demand to see my children like I had some right to like have visitation with them, And I just remember thinking it was the best thing for them, that they should be able to see me. They should be able to hang out with their parents. But, I was dragging them around to trap houses and we were sleeping on the street. But I still thought I was doing best by them, but I was really just doing what was best for me. And I see that now, but at the time I didn't. It got to the point that my kids were afraid to hang out with me. But they were afraid to also tell me that they didn't want to come and see me. I remember my sister telling me that, but that didn't stop me from making them come, because I still wanted to see my kids. I was probably in jail a lot most of the summer of 2015, and for a couple of weeks, out for a week, in for a couple of weeks. December 3rd, 2015, I had DHS court, and that was the day that I lost custody of my kids. That was also the day that I got arrested in front of my entire family at DHS court, and I went to jail. At the time, I probably thought that was the worst thing in my life, but that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I was in Stark Court. I had to go to jail until I got released to treatment. So I spent 6 weeks in jail. And by the time 6 weeks, of not using kind of cleared my head a little bit. So by the time I got to treatment, I wanted to go to treatment, but when I got to treatment, I didn't really want to be there, because my husband was still on the streets, and so he was still floating around out there, because I was more worried about the outside world and making sure that things were okay with him instead of taking care of myself. And I spent like the first 3 days at VOA trying to decide if I was going to stay. And, because I didn't want to stay. Well, I wanted to stay, but I wanted to take care of him, but I didn't want to go to prison, because I had a 5-year downward departure when I went to VOA. So if I had left, I'd have gone to prison. And so that's really probably what scared me the most into staying in treatment. But the first month or so I was in treatment, I don't even really remember it. It was kind of like this vague fog because I was still too worried about trying to take care of everything else outside of treatment. And I wasn't focused on myself. I was taking care of my husband. He was lurking around the fences, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was, faking my passes. I'd say I was going to a meeting, but I wasn't going to a meeting. I was hanging out, But eventually that led me to relapse. And I did. So that's why my clean date is February 20th, about 2 months after I actually got into treatment. But I was lucky they let me stay. And that's kind of was the turning point for me. Well, kind of. Because when I first got clean, I didn't think I was going to be clean forever. I always said I was clean for now because I couldn't even imagine not ever using drugs again. It was a really hard thing to imagine never. But each day that went by, it got a little easier, So I'm in treatment, trying to do my thing, and I think the very first meeting I ever went to where I realized I might actually want to get clean was a birthday meeting, and this person was there and her family was there, and they were all talking about how happy they were, and that just kind of helped click for me that maybe this is something that I could do, maybe this is something that I want. So I just kind of kept trucking along, started going to meetings. Probably the best thing that happened to me in treatment was my husband went to jail. And so for the first time, I didn't have to worry about him, and I actually got to take care of myself for once. And I just remember it was just such a relief for me because I finally got to focus on me, my kids, and building my life. And so that's what I did. You know what I mean? I started I had DHS, they were up my backside pretty bad. So, but in the beginning with DHS, it was really hard because I was really hard-headed. I had a big ego. I always thought that I was right. I wanted to control everything, and I didn't like being told that I was wrong.
Still doesn't.
Yeah. So, and so it was really tough sitting in these meetings where they were, talking to me about all these things that I'd done wrong and what I needed to do better, and it was really hard for me to accept that or take that criticism. And a counselor at VOA told me one day, if I could just learn to sit down and shut up, things might start looking up, and they did. And I started going to those meetings, and I started, and instead of talking all the time and demanding to be right, I finally started to listen. I started to take what people were saying and just really reflecting and figuring out what was best for me, So I was in treatment for a long time, but, it got to that point where it was I started getting my kids. It's starting to do these right things really started to show, I started getting the rewards for that. They were nicer to me. It's they were telling me that they were proud of me, that and Start Court, I still had to go. It took me 2 years to finish Start Court, but I did it. But, it was I started doing the right things and people noticed, and that made me feel good about myself. And that's all it took for me to start wanting to be a better person, wanting to do the right thing, and then getting to see my kids every weekend, was amazing, and, but there got to be a point that, Brandon got out of jail and he still wasn't clean, and about that time, I had almost 6 months clean, and I had to make a decision because they said that if I stayed with Brandon, I wasn't going to get my kids back. And being codependent, that was probably the hardest decision I had to make in my life because I had to pick my kids. And I did. And and that, and I was lucky because he decided to get clean too, and so in the end, it worked out. But like, I knew that if I would have chose him over my children, like that would have been the end. That would have killed me. I would have been back out. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that to them. I wanted them to have a better life, And so, and then from there, from treatment, like everything just started getting better, and it's like, and so the better things got, the less I wanted to use, because I didn't want to lose all the things that I had gained. I got my kids. Back in the day when I was at VOA, I got to be there for 8 months. And that was a really good 8 months for me, because I was really able to have that time to figure out how to live my life clean, and so I graduated treatment. I got housing. I got my kids back within a week of being out of treatment. I got a job. I got my license back. Like, I was doing really well, and so like, I didn't want to lose those things. And so and then there was one thing though, because like the criminality was a really hard thing for me to break, even though I was clean. That one was still a tough one. So we're not always perfect, even if we're clean. So, but there also got to be a point where like I didn't want to go to jail sober, like. So it was just time to turn that around, and I didn't want to lose everything I had worked for, so like, and then, so out of transitional housing, I got permanent housing. I met a really good group of girls at treatment. There was like 5 or 6 of us, and we stuck together for the first couple of years, and that really helped me because we were all moms. We took care of each other. We lived together at Cooch Street. So I had a really good support group coming out of treatment. And I think making those relationships with those women is really what helped me stay clean, I think having my own, because when I first wanted to get clean, I kept thinking that Brandon and I had to do it together, And I was determined that we were going to do it together. But, I realized like having my own program and doing my own thing is what helped me to stay clean, So
Yeah, I think we're done.
Huh?
He keeps showing the clock.
Are we done?
He keeps showing the clock.
I'm not even seeing him. Don't anxiety here.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so I didn't know I was on that much of a time limit, but I have a really
No, it's not for you.
okay. But because of recovery, I have a really good life today. I have a good job. My family's amazing, and I don't have to use drugs anymore. So, thanks.
All right, before I tell my side of the story, we skipped the readings earlier before we started. So if you have one of the readings, go ahead and grab it now. And would someone please read Who is an Addict?
My name is Matthew. I'm an addict.
Hey, Matthew.
Who is an addict? Most of us do not have to think twice about this question. We know our whole life and thinking was centered in drugs in one form or another. The getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. We live to use and use to live. Very simply, an addict is a man or woman whose life is controlled by drugs. We are people in the grip of continuing and progressive illness whose ends are always the same. Jails.
Institutions and death. Oh, my. What is the NA program?
My name is Mike. I'm an addict.
Mike?
NA is a nonprofit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs have become a major problem. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. This is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There's only one requirement for membership: the desire to stop using. We suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we could follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA. We are not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We are not connected with any political, religious, or law enforcement groups and are under no surveillance at any time. Anyone may join us regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. We are not interested in what or how much you used or who your connections were, what you have done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we could help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We have learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean.
Why are we here?
I'm Garrett. I'm an addict. Before coming to the Fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we had found it in drugs. We placed their use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seemed to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction, we were slowly committing suicide, but addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, and psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in depression or desperation, we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Thank you, Garrett. How it works, front side only.
My name's Cheris, and I'm an addict.
Yes, sir.
If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thank you. We do recover.
I'm Jen, and I'm an addict. We do recover. When at the end of the road, we find that we can no longer function as a human being, either with or without drugs, we all face the same dilemma. What is there left to do? There seems to be this alternative. Either go on as best we can to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, or death, or find a new way to live. In years gone by, very few addicts ever had this last choice. Those who are addicted today are more fortunate. For the first time in man's entire history, a simple way has been proving itself in the lives of many addicts. It is available to us all. This is a simple, spiritual, not religious program known as Narcotics Anonymous.
Thank you. 12 traditions, front side only.
I'm Ashley, and I'm an addict. The 12 traditions of NA. We keep what we have only with vigilance, and just as freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps, so freedom for the group springs from our traditions. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that would tear us apart, all will be well. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. 6, An NA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thank you, Nancy. Joe will now read the daily meditation.
My name's Joseph, and I'm an addict.
Yosef.
February 12th, living in the moment. We regretted the past, dreaded the future, and weren't too thrilled about the present. Basic text, page 7. Until we experience the healing that happens when we work the 12 steps, it is doubtful that we can find a statement more true than the quote above. Most of us come to NA hanging our heads in shame, thinking about the past and wishing we could go back and change it. Our fantasies and expectations about the future may be so extreme that, on our first date with someone, we find ourselves wondering which lawyer we'll use for the divorce. Almost every experience causes us to remember something from the past or begin projecting into the future. At first, it's difficult to stay in the moment. It seems as though our minds won't stop. We have a hard time just enjoying ourselves. Each time we realize that our thoughts are not focused on what's happening right now, we can pray and ask a loving God to help us get out of ourselves. If we regret the past, we make amends by living differently today. If we dread the future, we work on living responsibly today. When we work the steps and pray each time we discover we're not living in the present, we'll notice that those times aren't occurring as often as they used to. Our faith will help us live just for today. We have hours, even days, when our full attention is focused on the current moment in time, not the regrettable past or fearful future. Just for today, when I live fully in each moment, I open myself to joys that might otherwise escape me. If I'm having trouble, I will ask a loving God for help.
Thanks, Joe. All right, I'll now turn the meeting back over to Nick for key tags.
Is there anyone here for their first, second, or third NA meeting that would like a white key tag and a hug? Perfect. Absolutely, it is. All right. Is there anybody here acquiring 30 days?
Hell yeah.
You have 30?
There we go. Way to claim it.
Congratulations. What's your name?
Dominique.
All right. Anybody celebrating 60 days?
There we go.
What's your name? Congratulations, Melissa.
Good job.
Anybody celebrating 90 days?
Hey.
Anybody celebrating 6 months?
Hey. A lot of key tags.
How about 9 months?
Hey, good job, Richard.
How about 1 year? 1 year's 18 months. Multiples of years? How about the most important just for today? I would like to turn the meeting over to our next speaker, Brandon.
All right. You should do that. Okay. Got it? I don't know if it started. All right, my name's Brandon. I'm an addict. First and foremost, I just want to say that, it's an honor and a privilege to get to come up here and talk. One of the things I deal with mental health is the negative self-talk, self-doubt, and to get to come up and talk reminds me that I'm worth it. And I want to say to anybody that just took key tags, especially under a year, you're the real hero. The way the street is right now, for you to make the decision to get clean is fucking huge. And you're onto something big, so congratulations for them. I want to read something real quick. It's out of It Works, How and Why. It's on page 112, and it has been something that has spoken to me for most of my recovery. It's the goal, and sometimes it's the challenge. But we see that regardless of the presence or absence of material success in our lives, we can be content. We can be happy and fulfilled with or without money, with or without a partner, with or without the approval of others. We've begun to see that God's will for us is the ability to live with dignity, to love ourselves and others, to laugh, and to find great joy and beauty in our surroundings. Our most heartfelt longings and dreams for our lives are coming true. These priceless gifts are no longer beyond our reach. They are, in fact, the very essence of God's will for us. So I'll take you back a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time in the mess, because if you're in this room, you have a mess of your own and you don't need to hear about mine. So my life kind of started with instant trauma. I come from a very broken and abusive home. I'm a high school dropout. I spent my entire childhood being told that I wasn't good enough, that I was never going to be enough. I'm the youngest and smallest of three brothers, and so my entire childhood was trying to live up to them. My dad made it known that he only wanted 2 kids and that I was just going to have to take what I could get. That led to a lot of mental health issues at a very young age. Like I said, I dropped out of high school. I left and went to the coast and lifeguarded for a year, and then went to Montana and snowboarded. And upon returning back to Oregon, I got a job. The only thing about that job that I was grateful for was that it's when I met Lisa. I was 19 years old, or 20 years old, and in 1998, she became my wife. We were what you would call normies for a very long time. I had owned a construction company, and when that wasn't working out, I went back to Mount Hood Community College and got my GED. Shortly after that, I was hired as a corrections officer with the Oregon Department of Corrections. So, start that conversation, huh? How y'all doing? Cool. The reason that I really bring it up is because it was the first time in my life I felt somebody. All of the trauma, anger, all of those things, I was allowed to engage in my career. The fact that I was, a piece of shit, kind of, an asshole, that was okay. That career, I moved very quickly through the ranks, became a member of the TERT team, and thought that was just going to be life. In 2010, I started experiencing some pain in my back. That progressed to the point where I finally started seeing doctors. They had no idea what it was. They couldn't figure out what was happening with me, but the first part of the treatment for it was I was put on painkillers. Excuse me. I was on painkillers for about 3 years. As Lisa mentioned, like we very, very quickly became pill addicts. At no time had anybody ever discussed with us like what the pills were going to do. It was 2010, so they weren't as advocating for less painkillers. We had no idea what we were getting into, and they would give me so much of them that there was plenty for both of us. A little after 3 years of being on the painkillers, they weren't really able to figure out what was going on. OHSU had diagnosed me with Cobb syndrome, which is extra blood vessels and veins that don't belong there. They were wrapped around my spine. And they had convinced me that I was going to be paralyzed and that I was never going to walk again. They sent me back to Kaiser for maintenance, and Kaiser labeled me a pill seeker and a doctor shopper. They were not wrong at all. I didn't really know that at the time. I just knew that if I kept telling them what wasn't working, they would just give me more and better. I had no idea what behaviors I was engaging in. I had no idea where this was going to lead us. One of the major side effects of all the pills was that I started experiencing night terrors, and I started experiencing vivid recollection of childhood abuse. It was extremely detrimental. We lost our home and had to move into a double-wide trailer with my mom in Colton, Oregon. 14 years of marriage went into a storage unit, and we stayed there for 2 years. I remember all the drives, the 2.5-hour drive we'd take to go to OHSU, for them to tell me they couldn't do anything. After we were cut off after I was cut off from the painkillers at the hospital, I had no idea what to do, and we both began drinking very heavily. That lasted for about 9 months, and the drinking really kind of came to an end when I tried to commit suicide. I went to the same park that I played with my children at in the middle of the night, and I hung myself. I survived. I want you to know that if that's something you've struggled with, that you're not alone, and like you're here for a reason. And I'm always down to talk. At this point in time, we had been, aging and disability had gotten us into an apartment in Rockwood. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Rockwood. Maybe swung through there a time or two, but after being released from the hospital, I began going to this little bar on 181st, and just like, that was how I was going to control my drinking. If I just went there and did a couple shots and left, right, like I wouldn't continue to drink all day. While I was there one night, I ran into a former inmate and talked to him about what was going on, and he introduced me to my cure. Meth fixed everything. Not gonna lie, like where I was mentally, physically, like Lisa said, I suddenly had energy. I had like 9 million projects that I started. It took me so far out of my pain that I didn't care what the result was. I didn't care that like my kid's school was wanting to send caseworkers over to walk through our home, and I remember Lisa and I scurrying to get the house like clean and immaculate and shit because we knew somebody was coming over, the caseworker was coming over. It progressed. It progressed extremely quick. I was never going to inject until I did. I was never gonna do this until I did that. Slowly but surely, I started trading all my morals and my values and like any kind of character that I had. I became willing to do things that sober me would never condone. Sorry, trying to stay on track. There's a lot of fucking people in here. So, as Lisa was saying, right, like our MO was, you know, me, the absolute tweaker, would go run through the stores and draw attention, and my wife, the soccer mom, would go boost everything. Hey, we had a gimmick, right? You gotta have a gimmick. And that accumulated. I think the fourth time she was caught was when they put her in jail. They didn't book and release her. She wasn't there for a couple weeks. During that time period, I found another substance, the dark substance, and that was when things got really, really dark for me. That was when I committed some of the worst things that I would say I've ever done in my life. I don't need to get into detail with that, but that accumulated March 18th of 2016. I was arrested on 17 charges. Through the process of meeting with lawyers and whatnot, based on my background, the DA was not offering me anything. He wanted me to do 7.5 years in prison. Fortunately for me, I was given McJerk program, and I was released. I met with my PO, and my PO was about 30 days from retirement. He gave me a shelter voucher and told me not to get arrested. I didn't take him up on the shelter voucher, but I did not get arrested. At about a month is when the DHS meeting that Lisa was talking about, where she was getting the kids back, I showed up to that. I was extremely loaded, and that was when I found out that Lisa was getting the kids back if she agreed to never talk to me again. The judge offered me the opportunity to go to treatment instead of the judge signing that, so of course I was happy to go to treatment. Be honest with you, it didn't have anything to do with my wife or my kids. It had to do with the fact that if she signed that no contact, I was losing my enabler. Lisa was my resource. I took full advantage of our codependence on each other. That's who I was in addiction. So I got to experience my first round of treatment, and man, under some structured circumstances, I did extremely well. I was a peer leader and, you know, gung-ho when I did my first 3 steps in 2 days, you know. Yeah, you know what I mean? It was all perfect. It was all good. And I was released from NARA Residential to the Mentor program downtown. About 3 weeks into the Mentor program, I was taking my son to school, and I found dope at a bus stop with my son present. And, you know, being the guy that I am, I didn't want anybody else to find it. You know what I mean? Like, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. So I go ahead, I picked it up and put it in my pocket. I'm going to get rid of it later. What I've learned in recovery is the thing, you know, motive and intent. And it was definitely not my motive or my intent to give that away. So I managed to make it through the Mentor program, and I gave my graduation speech loaded. Shortly after that, I went back to Hooper, got into the last treatment program I went to. I was in an outpatient, Bridges to Change, and 3 months in, I discovered Kratom. And it's cool, they don't test for it. You can buy it over the counter, right? So it's, you know what I mean? It ain't no big deal. Kratom is the substance that taught me that I was an addict. It gave me that lesson, which I needed. I started acting the same way I would for any other substance, lying about where I'm going, selling my food stamps. And when that finally stopped, it was 6/21/17, and I've been clean since then. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was huge. 6/21/18, I was more suicidal than I'd ever been in my life. The mental health was horrific. I'm bipolar, PTSD, suicidal ideation, And I want to bring up mental health. Like, I hear a lot of speakers who don't talk about that aspect, but like, I want to bring that up because if you're here and you're struggling, you're not alone. Like it's a huge part of my recovery is addressing my mental health. As I started beginning step work and I started following those 5 basic suggestions: meetings, sponsor, step work, support group, higher power, right? Like, I started addressing those things. What I got to find out about me was that I'm not so bad. The things that I had done in my addiction were not me. I was not operating with good information. I was using the fact that, like, I had been told you're never gonna walk again, it's all this, if the doctors can't fix you, you're fucked, right? I mean, you must be dying. What I got to find out was that, like, I'm not responsible for my thoughts. I'm responsible for my actions. And if I continued to stay clean and do the next right thing, I would be successful without my permission. Right? Like, what's up here wants to take me out. It wants to kill me. And my goal in recovery is to rise above that. I am not perfect. She'll tell you. But the one thing that I have done absolutely perfect is just not get loaded. The things that I experience today, I'm going through some med changes and, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still working with the mental health because just like my recovery, my mental health is an evolution. I don't get to pick one thing and be good with it, right? And like, what I know is that what I've experienced over the last 6 years, 7 months, and 22 days is that it doesn't get easy, but it gets better. I'm able to deal with things that would have taken me out. The experiences that I've got to experience while clean have prepared me for what I'm facing today. Something somebody said to me once that stuck with me, right? And it's something I want to share with y'all, like, especially those that took key tags today with less than a year. What happens when we find recovery for me, right? Like, I'm a seed that got planted. And once I got planted, it became really, really dark. It became very lonely. Everyone that I knew, everyone that I hung out with was no longer good for me. They were no longer people and places that I could go. But as I started doing the work, I started to grow. And what's the first thing a seed does when it starts to grow? It pushes the fucking dirt out of the way. And the more dirt I began to push, the more light I began to see. And the longer that I've stayed clean, the more light I get to experience. And at any moment, I can turn around and I can look down and I can see all that dirt. But I don't have to live there anymore. What I get to experience today is 100% a gift. I was Narcan several times in my addiction. Suicide attempts. There is no reason that I should be here. Every single day that I get to live, for me, is a gift. It's also a new record. I've never been clean this long in my life. But it's a gift. Like, for some reason, my higher power, my creator, decided that I had something else to give. And if you're here and you're clean, your higher power says the same thing. What we get to do in recovery is share with others what we've learned. We don't get to come up here and tell everybody how fucking great it is and how cool it is and how sunny it is all the time. We get to share with the newcomer. We get to share with people that we can survive through it all. We are not broken. We don't need to be fixed. We need to heal. We need to repair. We need to come to terms with the things that we worry about. I'm not the man I used to be, and if I'm lucky tomorrow, I won't be the same man I am today. I'll be 1% better. And at the end of the day, when I can lay my head down and I can thank my higher power and I can kiss my wife and I can be grateful for my kids and their success, right? Like I am absolutely fucking winning this thing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Thank you for letting me be of service. I'm Brandon, and I'm an addict. Can we eat now?
Hey, real quick! When we slide up, all women and children eat first.
This ain't the Titanic.